Thanks, Alex. Hello, everyone. Thanks for letting me talk to you and share some happy thoughts for a few minutes. Hope I'm not too boring. This is my daughter, Juliet. Juliet, should hop up, please. She's our eldest. We have 4. But she's a bit reluctant because she's embarrassed about my socks. So anyway, I like them. And
they're the best colours.
Oh, hang on, I'm sorry. So, what? There's just a few pictures here that might scroll, I think, if they're scrolling. There's just some little pictures of what I like to do in my spare time for the Lord. Are the lights easy to turn off for a sec? That'd just be fun for just a few seconds. So I ride a skateboard for Jesus with funny socks on and all sorts of gear. And this was a comp I went to in Melbourne in November. The Lord was very good and got me the opportunity to go down there and came 7th out of 42, which was not very good, but better than losing. I had a ball, had this shirt on, representing for Jesus, and it was a special time in a scene where it's all very anti-God and very dark and very worship the devil and get drunk and have drugs and sex, drugs and rock and roll. It was a privilege to be there, sporting the cross and just living clean and not sculling beers. So, but that's what I like to do as a ministry slash fun slash exercise thing, but that's not what we're here to talk about tonight. What we're here to talk about briefly is how I got to be the cross-wearing, Jesus-freak skateboarder that I am, and not the drug-addicted, sexually perverted hooligan that I once was 20... How is my watch going to help me? 18 years ago. So, but before we get there, just quickly as well, on the subject of skateboarding, some of you are going to Easter Fest. Who's going to Easter Fest? The Lord has made a very kind way for me to get there for free by skateboarding, getting me in for nothing. So I'm skating with the JC Epidemic people on the ramp. So if you do come up, come and say hi, and if you are going up, have a lovely time with that whole group of Christian young people just having a blast, celebrating the joy of living in Jesus. So please may I have a little bit of light now again, because I can't see anyone. I can't see who's falling asleep. Not that anyone will fall asleep. And secondly, on the subject of Easter Fest, recently, no, we'll get there later. Hands up if you're a Barlow Girl fan. Yeah. Go girl. Go man, I am. I thoroughly am. These 4 CDs I own. Hang on. My wife bought this one for my daughters. They didn't like it, so I claimed it. Then I went to buy this, and they had these 2 at the shop while I was picking that up, so I thought, let's just get them all, because I'm going to want them one day. They're insanely good. Not because they're pretty young girls, not because they play grunty and mellow and very good music, but because every song they sing has this underlying gung-ho-ness for God and a boldness that just says, live for God, hate and avoid the world. Such classic songs they have, just mocking the world for misleading us. So if you've never heard Barlow Girl, check them out. One of their friends are playing at Easter Fest. Haven't got to the testimony yet. Super Chick, I haven't heard yet, but I'm told by a youth pastor I met at Honda the other day that Super Chick have a song called Barlow Girl about how they met Barlow Girl and Barlow Girl are champions for God. So anyway, it's all about God, not about Barlow Girl, about me. So when I was young, I was not like you. I never went to a church or a youth group. There's 4 minutes of introduction prior to testimony. I grew up in a family where my dad was an alcoholic and used to beat my mum, occasionally, his wife. Have a brother. We grew up godless, having no idea what life was about, no idea who God was. Life was fun, riding bikes, no hands down the hill, that sort of thing, just living life, but just not knowing what life's about. And in the 80s, I remember, as I became pre-teenage, whatever, 12th grade, 5, 6, 7, whatever that is, started hearing, radio music and trying to figure out what all the words to the songs meant. And now I know they meant nothing. But back then, as a grown-up, I'm like, what? I just somehow, for some spastic reason, thought the radio had some message to give me. That these songs, if someone's bothered to write them, they were part of society's way of, I don't know, educating me. And it was all just junk. Anyway, that's an aside. So, and we never went to church. I think in my life I went 3 times in some obscure circumstances. Ended up in a Sunday school service once and thought it was the weirdest thing in the world. Then, I think that might be the only one. Anyway, so no exposure to God. So, grew up, became very good at surfing, got sponsored, good at skateboarding, got sponsored, and was all part of that fight to be popular, fight to overcome the pain of being unpopular actually, because I was quite in the sort of unpopular level of society in school. Not super unpopular, but in the middle range, and so stupidly my pride drove me to become really good at surfing, partly because I loved it and partly because the cool kids in the school that went out with the cool girls, the couple of pretty girls, it was all about who was cool and who was good at stuff. So I got good at stuff, became cool, looking back just a spastic thing to do, but anyway. And in the process got very good at surfing and skateboarding, but did not know God. So all of the local fame and glory that I got, I just heaped up for myself, unlike now using it to get people's attention and then point them to God and give Him glory, because He's good and He's God and He made rainbows. And He's a rainbow. Because the Bible says that God is light and there is no darkness in Him. And those of you, just an aside again, who know science, would know if you shine light through a glass prism, or a cloud for that matter, a rain cloud that is, what does it turn into? Rainbow. So good bit of math, light equals rainbow. So God is a rainbow. For God's heart, the lightness of God is expressed in the colourfulness of a rainbow. So despite the fact that Johnny Cash wore black and I'm wearing a lot of black, we'll talk about the colour scheme at the end quickly. Those of you who are perceptive may have noticed a colour scheme. A bit of black and red. So we'll start with black. We're on the black part of the story. Growing up not knowing God and good skateboarding, surfing. Drugs entered the picture, smoking pot, that was good fun. Smoking drugs, getting all silly, thought it was all harmless fun. Swearing black and blue, telling everyone, excuse the phone, just ignore it. That's Alabaster Box singing at you. Just tell them to shush. But little did I know that I was slowly becoming addicted. Even though I was telling everyone, including my mum, hey, I'm not addicted, I just do it for fun, I just like to, I'm not addicted. I'm not addicted. Years and years. No, I'm not addicted, I just do it for fun. And drugs and sex, which we won't talk much about, but I can assure you that in the time between being 13 and being 19, I tried the majority of drugs that existed then, which is nearly the majority that still exist, and I tried the majority of inappropriate sexual things that there are to be tried, including paying for sex in King's Cross, and I won't even go into other ugly details. The point being, I have tried the things that the world is saying to you, hey, you're missing out. I've been a famous skateboarder. I've skateboarded with Tony Hawk. I've tasted, to a degree, the things that the enemy is presenting and trying to distract us with and say, this is what life's about, being popular and cool and getting free stuff and getting lots of money and being famous and sex and drugs and rock and roll. Now, when I was 19, coming to the red part of the story, and my life was a total mess, and I had begun to realise that I in fact was addicted to drug use, and it was scaring me because my brain was getting more and more fried and scattered, and I was becoming so spastically paranoid that I couldn't talk to people when I was straight. When I was straight, I was as paranoid as I used to be when I was stoned, and it was just horribly frustrating and scary and annoying, because you'd see someone you hadn't seen from school by now. I'm 19, so I finished school, wasted my life, didn't go to uni because I was a drug addict and sick of school and just wanted a year off, and the year rolled into 2, and drug addiction and living for fun had taken over. And then God snuck up on me in such an excellent way. He is so rad. He doesn't care about skateboarding and cool clothes or uncool clothes, whatever you might call my socks, or whatever you wear. It's not important to Him, but what is important is people. So if a spastic pair of socks or a crazy pink hat or some skateboarding that gets people's attention sort of opens someone's heart, or just does something in some sinner who is so self-consumed with skateboarding that that's all they care about, or so